Greetings, everybody. Nick DiVirgilio here in Chicagoland. We're in, what, Glendale Heights?
Glendale Heights.
And I'm at Steve Maxwell's drum shop. And this is my first time here. I've been in this business for a really long time, and I'm surprised it's my first time coming to your shop. But
first time for everything.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Absolutely.
And having Gretsch here, and your long relationship with Gretsch, and we're going to get into all of these things. But what a fantastic facility you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's incredible.
It's great fun. Great fun.
Just seeing the old gear. I mean, you have a lot of great new gear as well, but right. I mean, just the world of vintage drums that you've built is just incredible. We'll get into all of that kind of stuff.
Sounds good.
So this is, going out to the Gretsch world and our video channel. We got a lot of young players playing Gretsch who may not know who you are. So how did this whole thing get started? I'm sure you told the story before, but give us the backstory.
I was a player from when I was about 12 years old, and always had a passion for this. And even while I worked in traditional business, I always had a passion for drums. I collected them. I really liked, vintage drums. It was just a thing with me. And, over the course of time, it became a little bit more of a passion. And then, I did traditional business for quite a number of years. And I got to the point where I ran companies, but not in this space. They were credit card processing businesses. And I was running those businesses. And the last 10 years of it, I spent doing mergers and acquisitions. And then I said, I really love this. And I've got this little tiny space in downtown Chicago in the Fine Arts Building, which is a lovely arts-related building. It's a fantastic place for all things arts-related, music, dance, whatever. And a little 800 square foot little thing. Right. And it was only open on Saturday or something, So, but I liked it so much, and we eventually expanded it a little bit, and it sort of became like a bug. It's like, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. So it kind of fed on itself and grew, and we moved to a location in Naperville, a nearby suburb, and it kind of grew from there. Eventually, 2008 it was, we had this shop was going well in Naperville, and then we opened a shop in New York City, which was a big throw because it's kind of like, we just signed on the bottom line for $1 million worth of rent over the course of the lease. Are we going to sell any drums? It's like, But there was I grew up when I had a passion for this, because when I was young, before I was married, I was a teenager, I would take the bus into New York City and go to Frank Ippolito's Pro Percussion and have sessions, not lessons as he called them, with Papa Joe Jones.
Nice.
And I used to watch Al Duffy, who was the first true real custom builder, doing things at Frank's shop. So I just had this bug for it all the time. And when I was out here, I said, I want to do something like that. And even before going to New York, when I was on the road, later when I was on the road in a band, I got to meet Charlie Donnelly, who nobody's going to know this guy's name, nobody younger. But this guy was one of the very, very first, deepest experts on this stuff before. Look, there was no internet, there was nothing, no .com anything. Right. It's you had a catalog or you called somebody, He was a wealth of knowledge, and he had a little shop in Newington, Connecticut, and I used to go visit it. So all these things kind of fed this whole desire. So, we had the New York shop, and then, things were going along okay, and my whole goal in this thing was I don't want to do the same thing as everybody else. So I was very, very much into high-end vintage, and then very much into U.S. brands, but deep and only into the U.S. product. And Gretsch was an obvious choice, obvious choice. And that's kind of what we built the model on. Okay. It was differentiated. And worked well, that's different than what everybody else does. It's fine, worked well in New York. Eventually, we bought Forks in 2018, and when Gary was moving on, which was another whole thing, because that's a different business model than
totally. That's everything.
That's everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Pro drum shop, everything from beginners on the whole way, but different model, but a great business. And over the years, I've been involved with Craviotto because I loved the wholeness and the purity of what Johnny did. It was just amazing. I ended up being the largest dealer for his drums worldwide, and then eventually got involved in the company to kind of help him.
Sure.
So all these things kind of fed on themselves, and they just kind of go down the path and just keep going with it if it's working, I'm
amazed that I've been playing drums since I was 4 years old. I'm 56 now, And I think the passion for drums is just as strong now as it ever has been. I mean, it's shops like yours, all the big box stores too, but I mean, drums are still going strong, it seems like to me. The high-end brands are making incredible high-end drums. There's lots of offerings for kids who are just starting.
Right.
They don't have to spend a ton of money.
Right.
And there's all kinds of old gear out there as well if you want to dig in and find. So I think the world is strong for drums still.
It is. I agree. And it's so what you said, get back to a conversation we were having a little earlier. I'm 72, almost 73 now, so I've been around a little while.
Yeah.
And when I started playing in the 60s, we were talking about this earlier, there were no quality import items at that point in time. So you had all the major U.S. brands, Ludwig, Slingerland, Gretsch, Rogers, Leedy, but that was expensive.
Right.
You know, today there are so many options available. You can spend $500 and get a quality product. And in my day, you know, you had a bass drum made out of balsa wood with 6 lugs on it. You know?
Right.
So it is tremendous, but the passion for it is there. And what I'm also seeing, and I'm really excited about this, is that young people are still flocking to it. As a matter of fact, down at Forks, my guys had a great idea. They just did a young drummers night, and they did this. I wish I had this when I was a kid. There was no such thing, but the teachers had their students starting at like age 7 and then working the way up to the teenage kids. But they all got to come up on stage with stage lights on there to play, and for people, their families, and everyone else. It's like, what an unbelievable experience. And that's the future.
Yeah.
Those kids are the future, you know?
Yeah.
And the opportunities are there for them. The music is there. So I think it's great. I don't see it going, there's no doom and gloom there. I agree with you.
And, well, the quality of players, there was great drummers back in the day. Last night, I had just listened to I bought it at a used record shop on tour just a few weeks ago. Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I spent $45 on this record. It was the best $45 I think I've ever spent. It sounds amazing, and those guys were just absolutely incredible. The drummers of today, the young kids, are taking drums to whole other places what they can do with their bodies. It's amazing.
I know. You know, it's a funny thing. I do videos for my stuff, and I play. People would say, what kind of old school, whatever it is. It's what I play.
Right.
But I marvel at certain things. Louis Bellson was a big hero of mine. Louis Bellson was the first double bass player and a technical master, just like Buddy. Buddy was like God to me. Yeah. But I watch kids today and watch some things, and it's like, looks like your right foot on the bass drum's having a spasm.
Right.
You know, they got this toe thing going and this heel toe thing going. It's going 100 miles an hour, and I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. It ain't me. I keep telling people I got a horrible right foot. It stinks. But I can get done what I need to get done.
Sure.
And what we always said, the technique is great, and I'm glad what people need to remember, and you would know the same thing, the technique's a tool, you know? So you want to have enough technique to execute any musical idea you have with a little left over, you know? So technique just for technique's sake, not so much. But I think there's great players out there. I just had two kids come through here. One of them was getting ready to go to college, and he was playing, looking for some things. And I sit here and I listen, and I go, I got to go talk to this kid. And I said, you know, how old are you? Who you study with? Well, I kind of taught myself, and I said, so I picked up the phone and I called Peter Erskine, because I've known Peter I said, Peter, you can do Zoom lessons now, right? When I was a kid, forget it. Zoom meant go fast in the car. But I said, you got to help this kid. This kid he's got it. Right. He has it, you know? Yeah. And you see some of that stuff now, and I mean, this kid is a natural. And there's such levels of talent out there. It's incredible. It's wonderful to see.
When I think of Steve Maxwell Drum Shop, even though this is the first time I've been here, I know it's a classic drum shop. There's not that many of them left, especially in the United States. There's a few, but not too many. Yeah. What does that word classic drum shop mean to you? You've been in this world for a while now, successful at it. What's that mean to you?
You know, I take it from what the original shops meant to me. So the Frank Ippolito's and Maury LeSean's Frank's Drum Shop here in Chicago. What those places meant to me, and what we try to emulate, is, first of all, it's a place of community. So not everything can be done online. Right. And you want to sit there, and I remember being at, if I was at Frank Ippolito's in New York, well, who would walk in? Well, Art Blakey would walk in, or Elvin would walk in, and these people would be there talking, and you had a chance to interact and talk with these people. That's priceless, and you need that today. We need that. Not everything can be done online.
Right.
So that's important to me, and it's also important to me that people have the ability to kind of touch and feel the instrument that you're going to use to make your living. For me, to touch a ride cymbal, Papa Joe taught me how to pick a ride cymbal. He said, tweak the end with your fingers. And he said, well, what's the point? He said, to decide whether or not it's even worthy to put a stick on it. Because he wanted thin cymbals.
Right.
And so you want to experience that, because even the best sound file in the whole world isn't necessarily the same, because your stick and your touch and your control and how. So all of those things, classic shop to me is a sense of community, a place to touch and see and feel and hear the products, to get advice. If you're a young person, you need advice. I need to learn with teachers. So I think all of that is really, to me, and yeah, you have nice, cool drums and everything else too, but it's more than that. It's not just moving merchandise.
Right.
Well,
that's why I'm glad that we're talking, and I'm doing these dealer spotlights with all the Gretsch dealers we could find here in the U.S. that have these sorts of shops for that exact reason, because I think it's super important, just like you said, to have a place where drummers can hang out.
Yeah.
When I grew up playing, I had the guitar centers of the world around the corner. When they were only in Southern California, it was that long ago. But I also had the local music store where I would go, and I took some lessons, and I hung out with all the other drummers in town, and we jammed and we played and we met other musicians, and that's so important for musicians.
Yeah, you need that.
So
one of the things, and I give these guys great credit. There's a few. I'm going to name them because they're doing a great job. There's guys who remind me of myself when I was young, and I've seen a couple of guys like that. And Bryson down at Nelson Drum Shop is one of them. You got Charlie over at Badges in Cincinnati. You got Mike Windish over at Junk Rock over in Philly, and you've got people who are trying to do that kind of a model.
Right.
And I think it's really important. And I talk with those guys on a regular basis to encourage them and talk about it and to try to help them find points of differentiation, because the whole thing is, if you're going to try to sell compete with the big box, it won't work.
Right.
So you have to have your point of differentiation, and a lot of these guys do. They understand the vintage side. They understand the high-end product lines. Those guys have become excellent Craviotto dealers, and they get it, and they are that spot, that place to go, that gathering spot, and they're the up and coming independent dealers of tomorrow. So you got to give them support. You got to love them for it.
Love it. You're well known for vintage gear, even though we're sitting in front of a lot of beautiful brand new gear.
Yeah.
Where did the passion for vintage gear come from? How did it start?
When I first started to play, I didn't even have drums. I used to play on old coffee cans and oatmeal boxes, whatever I could find. But for whatever reason, and I can't explain why, I was just always drawn to the instrument. And so the first drummer I heard, now keep in mind, I'm 73 almost, so this is going back to 60 whatever, early, was Krupa. As because my parents had the records, and and I listened to that, and I was drawn to it. And then for me, as I got interested in the instruments, the drums that were available at the time, these were new drums, but it was Ludwig, Gretsch, Slingerland, Rogers, Leedy, those brands. Right. So that to me was what I grew up with. I'd get the catalogs, I'd look at the catalogs, oh my God, look at that, look at that, look at that. And so now, however many years later, I go off on this and start doing it on my own. To me, what resonates with me is all that stuff from when I was young. Now, you got people at a different age group. To them, vintage is 80s Tama.
Sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. But it's a frame of reference. So to me, it was those great U.S. brands. That's what I grew up with, and I have had a passion for it, and, that drives a lot of it.
You have a lot of amazing drums in this store. How old was the one you just showed me? The little 4x14 Black Beauty?
Black Beauty, that goes back to the early 1900s, yeah.
And the old Gladstone snare drums that look like they're brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. That goes into the 30s through the late 40s, yeah.
And these instruments are still playable, right? I mean, you could still use these.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, Gladstone snares, among especially orchestral players, the most highly prized snare drums ever. You want to buy one, it's going to start at $19,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing for one drum.
Yeah.
What do you think has changed most about the drum industry in all of the years you've been in it?
Oh, wow. Well, you could say there has been a strong amount of growth in electronics. And, electronics has its place, and I don't have any problem with it. It's just not my sweet spot.
Yeah.
But it has made a difference, a significant difference. So that is, electronics back in the 60s were very fundamental, rudimental Hollywood-tronic drum. I've had some examples of that. There's a 1/4-inch jack coming out of the bass drum, plugged into something that's basically an envelope filter that has 3 different weird little noises, and that's your electronic drum. But so that's been a big factor, without question. Beyond that, I just think the availability of high-quality product at so many price points is just astounding. There's actually too much. There's
a lot.
There's too much product on the market.
There is a lot.
But those kinds of things, electronics have made an impact and continue to. And the hybrid sets, with the traditional acoustic drums with the hybrid triggers and everything, it's got a place,
Sure.
And in New York City, when guys wanted to practice in their little apartments, an electronic kit with headphones is the only thing you could do.
Right.
So, yeah, that's been a big issue.
Okay. First Gretsch question, because we're here.
Sure.
I'm here representing Gretsch.
Gretsch.
What is your first encounter with Gretsch? Can you remember back in the day, your first drum you played on, first drum you saw or heard, anything like that?
Here's the funny part of that is this. When I was young, keep this in mind, I'm like 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
So I would look at the Ludwig catalogs and this, and I'd look at the Gretsch catalog and I'd go, I don't know, what are those 2 big round, why do they got these round knobs for the tone controls, and they got them at the top and bottom instead of just, and I looked at Ludwig and other brands, and Gretsch the catalogs weren't as flashy, and so it was kind of like, I don't know. Well, I was missing the boat big time, obviously, but you learn as you go, you're young, and you go, well, who, and this was right there, what drums are my heroes playing? So what was Buddy and Louie were playing Rogers, and then they went to Slingerland.
Right.
So you're looking at those things, and those are my heroes. That's what they play. And as you get a little older and you get a little smarter and you get a little more educated, and you look at what Elvin is playing and Art Blakey is playing and Tony Williams and boom, and Max Roach, let's run down the list, and you kind of go, there must be something to this. So I did not experience that until I didn't really get a Gretsch kit that I loved until right around 1970, we're going on the road, 74, 75. Okay. I had was going on the road with the band, and I went out and bought a 13, 16, 22 cherry finish Gretsch kit, which there was only one type. It was USA Custom, but there was only one. There was no Broadcaster, no Brooklyn. And I remember going, wow, how stupid was I before? I mean, it was just perfect.
Okay.
It was perfect. And I said, this is, the sound is perfect. And you start thinking back on things. Okay, you look at the shell composition, the bearing edge, the die-cast rims are going to take a little overtones out. So it's a focused sound, but it was pure, easy to play. It was like, this is wonderful. And that was my first introduction to it, and saying, I was missing the boat for a while. It took from 1962 to 74 for me to get smart, but that was it.
But you did.
I did.
Well, and the product, I guess, spoke for itself too. Once you got your hands on it, you
absolutely.
You knew.
And everything else I bought prior to that, since then, it's always been wonderful. You get, I would buy vintage kits. They would always be wonderful stuff, and people would always say, well, the snare drums from the 60s and 50s were a little boxy. And, I would get them and say, well, I can make it work. Sometimes you got to know how to tune it to make it work. Right. Everything's a little different. Right. But the stuff was great. And then I got hooked on, 12, 14, 18 bop kits.
Sure.
Then that's like the holy grail of holy grails.
Sure.
And had many of those and don't have any now because I get talked out of them. But wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you play what your heroes played. So when I grew up as a kid, My first kit was a Blue Sparkle Ludwig when I was 5 years old. And then I kind of played that until I was a young teenager, and my favorite drummer was Phil Collins, and Tony Williams was right there as a second of my two favorites. And so I begged my father for a Tony Williams yellow lacquer Gretsch, and my dad actually got me the kit.
Oh, man.
And so then I've been a sort of a Gretsch lover ever since. Yeah.
I am a Tony Williams yellow. I love yellow. And Tony Williams yellow, man, what a color.
It's great.
I love that.
And they're still doing it now. I mean, it's pretty close, if not exact, right?
Yeah.
Gretsch has a tagline that came from their old broadcaster kits back in the day, That Great Gretsch Sound.
Yes.
What's that mean to you? What does that catchphrase mean to Steve Maxwell?
You know, to me it was, the Great Gretsch Sound, to me, is definition of how perfectly easy it is for these to blend with the ensemble. Now, and I think about it, if it's a jazz trio or quartet or quintet, whatever it is, you've got, pick it, 12, 14, 20 die-cast rims, you've got a nice focused sound, you know, it fits in nicely, it doesn't get in the way of the bass, doesn't get in the way of the piano, it fits.
Yeah.
Fits where it's supposed to fit. But to take it the other direction, the rock kits, I remember Mark Craney was a great player, played with Gino Vanelli.
Loved him.
Amazing player. Gretsch player, and you know, recordings do a lot, but listen to those Gretsch drums on those recordings, sick.
Yeah.
Ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So those drums, they're great, and the sound works for countless genres of music. I can't think of one that it doesn't work for.
Right.
So that says a lot.
Sure.
That really says a lot. And then when you introduce the likes of, like, the broadcaster with more of the, call it the 50s shell and the like, you think about that, most of those 50s, mostly the sizes were still larger drums, 13, 16, 22, maybe 24. It was still the end of big band, the beginning of rock and roll, but it was before mostly bebop.
Right.
So you had larger drums, mid to lower tunings, that get that double flange rim for a more open sound.
Right.
So you've got what I call the broadcasters, kind of like the 50s sound. The USA Custom is the, you know, late 50s on through bebop and everything else era. And then you got the Brooklyn series that hugely covers the bases, and it's a value product still made here in the US.
Yeah.
What's not to like?
Yeah.
I mean, it covers all the genres, it covers all the price points, the sound is incredible, the workmanship's incredible. I told Fred Gretsch many times, just as a joke, I said, if you ever get rid of Paul Cooper, it will be the last day that I ever buy a Gretsch drum. I won't buy one again. And I mean, I've known Paul since he started 2 weeks. I met Paul 2 weeks after he started at Gretsch.
Okay.
Fred sent him to the Chicago Drum Show, which you guys are here for, and he said, Fred said, go talk about Gretsch. And Paul will tell you this story. And Paul says, I go in there, I'm walking around, I don't know what's going on, I don't know much about Gretsch. And he walked up to somebody, I think it might have been Bunny Carlos, and he said, oh yeah, I'm Paul, I'm from Gretsch, you don't really know much of what's going on. And Bunny said, well, go down and talk to Steve, he's a big Gretsch fan. Then Paul comes wandering down, and boom, boom, and then that's where I met him, 22, 3, 4 years ago. And I mean, he's great. The craftsmanship is incredible, the people are great. There's not enough good to say.
Amazing.
And it's a partnership. It's a true partnership.
Sure.
It's not just, you know, here's our stuff, buy our stuff. It's not like that.
Right. How do you compare today's Gretsch to yesterday's Gretsch?
When I think about it in terms of the quality of the sound, then absolutely. What's being made today is absolutely as good, if not better, because there are more precise ways to do everything.
Right.
So in that case, no question whatsoever. Other than the one little point we said of something that's aged for 50 years,
right,
has a certain character to the sound that's slightly different.
Right.
In terms of hardware and the like, I think it's much greater improved now. There are little funny things like in the old Gretsch floor tom leg brackets with the straight legs. Those brackets weren't out from the shell very much, so sometimes that straight leg would almost rub against the bottom rim and vibrate a little bit. So you'd have to put a little pad on there or something,
right,
or just put a little gasket behind the bracket, bump it out a little bit.
Right.
Today you don't have any of those issues.
Right.
And the quality of parts and materials is way different. So yeah, I mean it's better. And Gretsch still, as a testimonial to, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
They still make the 9.5 millimeter floor tom leg bracket, still make the disappearing spurs,
Right.
the internal tone controls, the T-rods. Yeah, you got a whole vintage build there now with the rail console at tom holder. There's a balance between the ideal setup and the setup that's practical and works well enough, so you got to go into a gig,
Right.
and small stages a lot of times.
Right.
So do you have rooms for cymbal stands like this to hang a suspension mount off of? Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Right.
You know, in my case, I'm a big fan of just having the tom holder on the bass drum. I prefer a rail to the center mount, but either way, and the bracket directly to the shell, there's two schools of thought to that, and it's great. But I just usually refer people to go, no, if you put the bracket on the shell, it's going to kill the resonance. And I'd say, well, okay, tell you what, go get any of the records from the 50s and 60s, Buddy, Louie, Mel, Blakey, Boom, Ba-Bamba, Bing, Keith Moon, Ginger Baker, whoever,
Right.
take a look. They all get brackets on the...
Yeah, there was no suspension.
There's no suspension. There's no suspension, nothing.
Right.
You got a bracket on the tom, and all drums sound good.
Yeah.
I totally get it. The purity of this, I get it. But it just becomes a practical matter at some point, too.
Right.
You know, trying to fit, we got a double rack tom setup here, but two of these stands, one on each side, that's a lot of floor space.
Sure.
You got a little club where, how do you make it work?
Yeah. We were talking about artists walking through drum shops.
Mm-hmm.
How connected are you with the artists out there? Because I know you talked to Vinny. You've been in this business for a long time, so I'm sure you talked to Peter Erskine. You just give him a call on the phone. How connected are you with the artists out there, old and new?
It's great because I have a good connection with some of the people, like Jeff Hamilton, Peter Erskine, guys like that I've known for many, many years.
Yeah.
I've managed Charlie Watts' collection over in London from 2007 to 2014, so we had that. And Steve Jordan I've known for 20 years.
Sure.
So those guys I know, and they're great. I mean, they're just great people. Most of them are of my age bracket, though. But I also, through Craviato, I know Ronnie Vanucci and the Craviato artists that we have there, but
Sure.
that's a separate issue. But I'm always looking for younger people. Justin Faulkner was someone that I got to know when we were in New York.
Okay.
When he was just going on in with Branford, when Branford was just hiring him when he was like 21 or 22. Marcus Gilmore, same thing.
Sure.
So got to know those guys through New York. Cindy Crawford, not quite. Yeah. Cindy Blackman has been a good friend for 20 some years.
Right. Amazing drummer.
Oh, amazing. And the sweetest person, just wonderful. So it's really nice to have those relationships with those people. Just feels good,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Great. You've been in this business a long time. You have a number of shops. You sell a lot of great gear. What's your ongoing mission in this drum world?
Wow, there's a good question. And, it's an interesting thing because as you get to my age, you start thinking about transitioning so that you're not running 4 businesses for the rest of your life. And I sold the New York shop to my manager over there. And I think one of the things that I find as part of my mission going forward is to keep doing what we're doing because I love it and enjoy it. But also, I'm trying to spend more time with guys who are new independent shops to provide any advice that I can and any guidance that I can. And I've done this with people because we all know, especially in the last 5 years when we had the COVIDs and everything else and supply shortages and all other crazy stuff, I've tried to encourage younger guys and I said, look, if you're having a problem, pick up the phone and call me because I will tell you if business stinks. Because you have to have somebody who will be honest with you. And you pick up the phone and go, Jim from Memphis Drum Shop and I all the time, Jim, is it me or what?
Right.
What's going on? And other times it's good, but I said, you need people who will be honest with you so you can say, no, it's not me. Okay, I'm stay the course, tweak it a little bit, but you've got to have people you can bounce stuff off of. So if I can help people who are getting started in that regard by being a sounding board, I like that. I think that's important going forward.
Amazing.
That's because they're the future.
Yeah.
Not me. They're the future.
Well, I think that's a great place to end this interview. Thank you so much for your relationship with Gretsch.
Thank you.
And keeping the brand out there in the forefront and alive and well. You sell some great, fantastic new gear, obviously the old gear. We just appreciate you so much. I'm super excited to meet you for the first time and to be sitting in your shop.
Thank you. A great pleasure, Nick.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers, everybody.